rides the DART rail line to the Fair Park Station. At 11 p.m., he steps off the DART station and heads west on foot on Commerce Street through Exposition Park, Deep Ellum, the East Quarter, downtown, past the 6th Floor Museum in the West End, under the infamous Triple Underpass, all the way to the Commerce Street Bridge next to the Justice Center. 3 miles, 3/5 of one person's 10,000 daily step goal. Probably gets to the Trinity River by midnight. Now say a woman does the same. Or a woman leaves her kids with her husband or wife or her family member and drives to work for her 11 p.m. shift at the hospital, has to stop to get gas, parks at a remote lot at work, works until 7 a.m., tries to grab some groceries before getting home to the kids to feed them back breakfast before she sits them down for COVID-era in-home schooling. Or finally, a woman meets up with friends at a club. They decide to go to a concert in one car. By the time she's dropped off back at her own car, she's more vulnerable by drink, by drug, by the lack of lighting, sidewalks, security. So welcome to Women and the Nighttime Economy, brought to you by the all-volunteer 24-hour Dallas nonprofit. The mission of 24-hour Dallas is to advocate for a nighttime Dallas that is safer, more inclusive, more vibrant for visitors, residents, and guests, businesses. Our focus today is not just on women in entertainment districts, sociable districts, or at entertainment venues, but also in the workplace and in the workforce at night. 24-hour Dallas always asks, what kind of city do we want Dallas to be at night? Our panelists today are Dimitrios, Mastoras, Jim, who's a master police officer with Arlington County, Virginia police, and also he's a nighttime safety expert and co-owner and consultant with his own business called Safe Night LLC. He'll tell you about that in a little bit. Carolyn Dent, who is a hospitality industry executive, soon to be a 24-hour Dallas board member and the general manager of the spectacular Omni Dallas Hotel in downtown Dallas. And Sonya Goode, who oversees outreach and sexual assault prevention programs for the Dallas Area Rape Crisis Center. My name is Randall White, and I am a volunteer with 24-hour Dallas. I do want to give a shout out to our co-sponsors today, the Nasher Sculpture Center. If you're not familiar, if you've not been, it's a museum in Dallas that houses the Patsy and Raymond Nasher collection of modern and contemporary architecture. It's a very smart and sophisticated and peaceful retreat in the center of Dallas. And Pavé Group, international social club for young women, brings women together for community development, empowerment. And the Pavé Group's also an alliance partner, our membership category for businesses and organizations in 24-hour Dallas. Now, before we begin, we're going to talk first with each of our guests, and then there'll be time for panelists to talk with each other or answer some of your questions. You can submit your questions during this Zoom through the Q&A chat, and we'll get to as many as we can. Some of our panelists might decide to respond to you directly during the course of our hour together. And then by Monday, we'll post this to our website at 24hourdallas.org. And for our panelists, who I noticed are on the Zoom call, we have several nonprofit executives. We have some other small business owners, particularly in Dallas. We have some nonprofit executives actually from both coasts who have dialed in with us, even though they're not Dallas specific. We do have some industry people from the restaurant industry and the hotel industry who are with us. And then we have some artists, performing artists, and some people who are employees of the hospitality sector, not just executives. So let's go ahead and begin. Jim, I would like to begin with you, if I may, and let you begin with the series of slides you brought. So you can go through them as you wish. Sure. And bring up the topics that you intend to talk about that we've discussed.
Very good. We can share my screen here. And it looks like we're sharing. Okay, my name is Jim Mastoras. I have been a police officer in Arlington County for close to 24 years. I'm very close to retirement. In the last almost 5 years, I've been a de facto nightlife liaison. I'm not really a police officer anymore in the traditional sense. I focus more on creating systems that help work towards long-term outcomes. And when I say that is, I've moved many of our municipality agencies as well as the community all towards working towards the same goals. We had an opportunity. My wife is a licensed professional counselor with a background in sexual assault and domestic violence. So we've had this unique opportunity to really bounce a lot of the work that I've done Arlington County has essentially been our proving ground. And it's very rare that you have two very different perspectives working on the same outcomes. And so there's two pieces that we focus on when it comes to how we approach nightlife and how we approach safety and the nighttime economy. And it's really relationships. It's building individual trustful relationships with the stakeholders. And then the second part is understanding that you can't do anything alone. So we focus on, first of all, is the proactive alliance relationship-based approach, where you meet people where they are and then you start from there. There's no other way to say it. It's very simple. It's what happens for most most professions in the world. You have to develop a network and a relationship with people before you can start accomplishing big goals and outcomes. And then the other part is bringing on the stakeholders. Frankly, if you're not reaching out to everyone that has a vested interest in safety for these large systems, then you're not doing the work. And from my viewpoint and stance as a police officer, that is not something my profession does very well. We're very good at holding community policing events, such as Coffee with a Cop or National Night Out, but that's working with partners who already want to work with us. You want to reach out to people who really have no desire to work with you, but you need them. If you're going to change and have long-term outcomes, then you need people to work with you. So that's what's changed for us. I've been lucky enough to start this consulting company so that we can start providing this model, this entire approach and viewpoint to many other communities throughout the US. So when I talk about proactive alliance, that's really the bread and butter of everything we do. Frankly, you cannot do anything without starting with some empathy, making sure that people understand that you're not there to hurt them. And I had to overcome many years of adversarial stances between many of the county agencies that dealt with the restaurants and bars, in that everything and every contact they had was punitive. I have not, in the 4 years, written a ticket. I've not arrested anyone because I don't have to. And when you get people on board with what you're trying to do, and which is to improve their business so that they are safer and make more money, you find most people are on board with that. So moving towards the realm of what we're talking about today, which is patron safety, especially with dealing with sexual assault and all the intricacies that go with that. Victim crime like this is very delicate, and people get very nervous about, do I want to be involved with this? Sonya and I spoke about this the other night, and what I have found in introducing the active bystander training in Arlington County is that people are very engaged. They want to do their part. It's just increasing the awareness. They have to have an understanding of what they're seeing, how they can intervene, and then what the resources are. And the bystander training has been huge for us in Arlington County. And I'll talk about this in a couple of minutes, but The complementary program, which is worldwide, which is Ask for Angela, is a patron safety program in most establishments where you simply, if you're having a bad date or you're in an uncomfortable situation, you can simply ask staff, is Angela working? Now, I've been asked in plenty of interviews, is that a code word? If it's a code word, why do we have posters everywhere? The whole point of it is by giving this training along with the higher standards and policies, you're equipping the staff to adopt a guardianship model so that when people walk into your restaurant or bar or into your hospitality venue, they know they're going to be watched out for. They know they're going to be safe. They know that there's going to be a pair of eyes, and frankly, that you're going to intervene if you see something that's not quite right. And it doesn't have to be overt. It could be something very subtle. But Sonya and I were talking about this, where sometimes we get very afraid about in these types of situations because they're so delicate. We don't know when we should cross those lines. And going through the bystander training, it really puts that onus on the staff, because when you are serving alcohol, people's inhibitions are down. They feel, a little bit more at ease, and perhaps allow, you create an environment where people allow themselves to do a little bit more than they normally would. We have to have that guardianship model and protect people when they're in the venues. So when you look at patron safety as a whole, the bystander piece is just one of it. You have to have reasonable effort as part of the other piece of it. You go through the fake ID detection and scanners. Those are excellent tools as well. Surveillance cameras, public safety expectations, knowing your resources. All of these work together. One piece on its own is not going to be as effective. Just like we know for trying to reduce alcohol-related harm, responsible alcohol service alone is not enough to get it done. The more resources and the more agencies that you bring on board and stakeholders that you bring on board, the more effectiveness that these models are going to have. So who are the stakeholders that we're talking about? The police department really shouldn't be the only one that's depended upon. And when you look at all the agencies that can provide something of value, and they're going to be able to produce a lot more results than just the police department alone. I'm looking at, just from the municipal side, the public health, human services, parks and rec, social services, but then you look at the hospitality industry, restaurant and bar staff, security, special event venues, and then what we consider the quasi-government, such as economic development, business improvement districts, and the restaurant and bar associations, all can provide that system and that support that might be needed otherwise. So in Arlington, we're very proud of the fact that we have this system, this model. And I was lucky enough to be asked to write a toolkit for the COPS office so that communities can start putting this blueprint in place, and understanding that there's a lot of work. You're going to spend just as much time building and bridging those gaps and relationships between the business owners and hospitality as you are with your own agencies. We are very siloed. We do not speak to each other, and we very rarely work towards common goals, which is incredibly frustrating. So you can imagine how much work and effort you're spending to have a better outcome instead of, everyone just not speaking to each other. So I have a short little video that demonstrates how big and vast this can be just for one small community in one nightlife area. And I'll start that now.
There are many restaurants that serve alcohol in Arlington County, but how do you know which restaurants take the safety of the customers seriously?
Making sure that the bars are not over serving, but just serving the right amount so that everyone's having a great time and able to enjoy themselves.
So when I walk into a bar, if I see that they have the Arlington Restaurant Initiative sticker, I feel a lot more safe. I know that they're going through the proper trainings and the proper channels to make sure that they're keeping the community safe.
Look for this, an accreditation in the Arlington Restaurant Initiative. It's a new collaboration between the Arlington County Police Department and other county agencies, including fire, public health, and zoning. The goal is to raise standards and make Arlington County a safe destination for nightlife and entertainment.
Having an ARI accreditation demonstrates to the patrons and customers that the restaurants really value their safety. We put on a whole host of training for the staff, which includes the public safety expectations, responsible alcohol service, fake ID detection, and more importantly, the sexual assault intervention training called Bar Bystander. That's put together by Arlington Project Peace. And lastly, they receive CPR training, which is put on by the Arlington County Fire Department, as well as staff from the Virginia Hospital Center called Hands to Hearts.
Restaurants that hold a Virginia ABC license are eligible for the ARI accreditation program. The program is voluntary, and restaurants submit policies to meet the ARI standards, which are then checked by Arlington County ARI assessors. Wilson Hardware, located in the Clarendon neighborhood, was one of the first restaurants to receive the ARI accreditation. Owner Ferris Garib says having training and policies for his staff really makes a difference.
As soon as we were invited to participate in the ARI program, we accepted. Our staff got a wide variety of training from the county agencies, and the end result is that both our staff and our customers are going to be more safe from there at Wilson Hardware.
The Arlington County Office of Economic Development and the Chamber of Commerce have partnered with Arlington County to promote restaurants that meet the ARI accreditation standards.
Arlington Economic Development's Food Launch Program is proud to be a partner of the ARI initiative. This is a great way for businesses to be involved in their local community.
The Arlington Restaurant Initiative is now active in accepting policies from restaurants that have met the ARI standards. Find more information on the ARI webpage of the Arlington County Police Department.
So this goes to show you that, you know, it's just a huge collaboration. And frankly, you know, you consider the experts that you have on this panel. I've been somebody that opens doors. I've been a facilitator and a project manager for all of these agencies. And when I see them go in and do the work that they never had an opportunity to do and be exposed to, I mean, we've trained hundreds and hundreds of people in Arlington County. So the fact that, you know, we have this ability to, and it was, frankly, it was just me. It was just one person at the police department who decided this. And I don't say that to be boastful. I'm saying one person can really change the dynamic. And at the end of the day, you have to open doors and give experts like you have on your panel today an opportunity to broaden, you know, their work and broaden their accountability towards the community. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to do it. The work speaks for itself. So I'm just very pleased to be here.
Well, thanks, Jim. You know, it's nice that Jim is really kind of a rising star, actually, in the whole nighttime economy movement that's happening globally. 50 or so cities around the world are really saying, you know, if we stop paying attention to what happens in our city after 6 and before 6 a.m., we're leaving a lot of our potential on the table. So we need to, in fact, invest. We need to run toward the night. And Jim has become kind of a rising star, if you will, in these circles that I've been interacting with for about 5 years, and is now becoming kind of a go-to person on this particular topic. So I'm grateful to have your free time here, Jim. Let me ask you a couple of questions, though. What were the circumstances? Now, Arlington County Police, we're Arlington, Virginia, and what are the other municipalities in Arlington County?
So Arlington County is a very geographically very small. It's only 26 square miles. We're just on the other side of Washington, D.C., on the other side of the river. There are no cities or towns within the county. The county government is all it is. So we have a series of neighborhoods, and we have 3 designated nightlife areas that have sprung up on their own. At Clarendon, for instance, we have 20 plus bars and restaurants, and you're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of pre-COVID, 4,000 to 6,000 people down there per night. And like I said, and actually we've seen nightlife rise in COVID. We had where we didn't have it before, because we're the only jurisdiction in the entire DC metro area, which includes Maryland and Virginia, or excuse me, Maryland and the district, that are open until 2 a.m. So we have people coming from all over the DMV that are flooding to our nightlife areas, and it's challenging right now through COVID, I got to tell you.
Okay. Now, and so what inspired this need to do this kind of Arlington Restaurant Initiative? Were there problems?
There were.
What have been the outcomes as a result?
There were. So my initial proposal that I submitted in 15 to the agency, we didn't have this position and we didn't have this initiative. I looked at Best Bar None. I looked at, I attended the Responsible Hospitality Institute Sociable City seminar back in 18. I started looking at this wealth of information that's out there. And before I knew it, I knew we had to have something that brought them in and provided the expectations. You have to empower businesses to do the right thing. And what would happen, because we made this voluntary, is they rose to the top, and very, very few showed themselves to be bad actors. And those were the ones we saved the enforcement for, who essentially were resistant to any help that all these county agencies, fire marshal's office, public health, code enforcement, you name it, everyone bought into this relationship-based approach. And then the fact that we had the prosecutor's office, the Commonwealth's, the victim witness office, who wanted to try this new program called Bar Bystander. I said, well, you now have an avenue to do it. Let's get it done. And they were all in. A very small staff who's trained hundreds of people.
Okay, now, and the Bar None program is actually kind of very much used in the United Kingdom, the UK, and Great Britain. It is an accreditation program that they're very interesting. The approach of accreditation is something we talked about at 24-Hour Dallas, how to tie in kind of businesses that have been trained to recognize their own systemic racism, so we can address some of the racism in the nighttime economy points. We're talking with another group of volunteers who are interested in basically forming a street team, Jim, of that's largely faith-based people, but they're not proselytizing. It's taken after the street pastors in the UK. So we're trying to figure out how we can bundle something all together that will help from a volunteer perspective, and from us as the gatherer of this full court press that you have been privy to in Arlington County, to bring all these forces together to see what we can do to make our sociable districts safer, and have a volunteer role, and have each of the businesses want to participate, to want that accreditation, because it helps in marketing them. Said we've been accredited by 24-Hour Dallas as a destination that is free of this, free of this, free of this, and free of this. That seems to me to be something that would make a district more attractive to the kind of customer you want. Right?
That's right. That's right. And when you have the promotion going on by your economic development and the chamber that recognize free of charge these businesses that are participating, we're going above and beyond. And it's funny you mentioned that, because we're actually looking at creating a community caretaker team that would be out there to facilitate rides to Uber or to Lyft, and or provide just simple care, helping them get a friend or their phone because they're too intoxicated. And that's a model that guardianship model has been used quite successfully in the UK.
Now, tell me what, before I move to Sonya, tell me a little bit more, though. Tell us all about a little bit more about the bystander program. Is that targeted to staffs of some of these businesses, or do you do open classes that anybody who likes to go out at night can learn how to be an active bystander to be helpful?
That's right. So we set them up, and actually we're delivering them online now through COVID. So what we would do is every month we'd have 2 to 3 trainings at a restaurant, and we'd invite all the other restaurants, because you have turnover in staff every month or every couple months. So once they become accredited, they have to maintain the training. And then so we would just invite them in all the area restaurants to come to this one location. It takes about 45 minutes. And what they're looking at is they're identifying the behaviors that are consistent with sexual assault and domestic violence. We don't want to, they want it to be behavior-based, but then at the end of the day, what are they looking at as far as intervention? So one of the best things that they cover is how to use humor, for instance. Is there a way that you can intervene that this isn't confrontational? And one of the trainers, I love her to death. Her delivery is perfect, and she gets so much engagement out of the staff. But she says, "Look, if you see a fight going on between two people who look like they're having some sort of domestic dispute, how do you know that they're together?" And she also said, you know, some behavior that you see might be consensual. Who are you to get involved in that? Well, it is your responsibility to get involved in that, but you don't have to be intrusive. You can say, "Hey, is everybody doing okay tonight? Can I get you something off the menu? How's everyone doing?" A simple check-in, or telling a joke might be just so offsetting enough that people know they're being watched. So if this is a situation where this is a perpetrator who is about to commit a crime or thinking about committing a crime in this establishment, they're going to be thinking twice. And they give it to all of the staff. Security gets it, managers get it, front of house. And we even ask that, like, even some back of house, like, the support staff. Because I got to tell you, I've had support staff that have pointed out guns on people in restaurants. You just don't know who's going to be there and be able to alert you when there's a problem. So I think everybody should get it. I really do, because it's about the awareness and then knowing what to do if.
And but one more thing before I segue, because this is a great setup to talk to Sonya. But you've used relationship policing model. Now we're in an era in America where there's a lot of discussion about reduced police funding, blah, blah, blah. When I think what was meant all along was rethink how we're policing. And you're talking a lot about a relationship policing model, which seems to be this team-based approach, which makes it safer for everyone,
That's
including
right.
women. Isn't that kind of what I'm hearing you talk about?
Absolutely. And so when you really look at the defund the police movement, I mean, I think most people, if you just looked at the tenets of what they're asking for, I don't know how you can agree with it. We should not, law enforcement should not shoulder every issue that society deals with. It should be, we should have a diffusion of responsibility. We need all our stakeholders, and we need to be a part of that. So I completely agree with you. The relationship is meeting people where they are. We just got done with a training class at Northern Virginia Criminal Justice Academy, and we call it collaborative perspective. Stop looking at problems like this where you blame each other and start looking at them like this. We need to have two eyes on an issue, because we're both are going to have a mutually beneficial outcome if we're working on this together. I'm not going to have as many police that are going to be needed to regulate and manage your area, because I can count on you to do the right thing. And I keep hearing this throughout the last few years. We don't want to disappoint Jim. That's what I hear from owners of businesses and operators. That means we have a connection. We have a connection as people. I respect them, they respect me, and we do right by each other. And frankly, there's very, very few that are not willing to do that. And that is with every stakeholder. You have to have these trustful relationships, or nothing gets done. It doesn't have a lot of substance to it otherwise.
And I'm very intrigued by this whole team-based approach. Sonya, one of the things I've learned in reading up for this particular webinar is I read a piece, and I'm a guy, I'm a dude, and there's stuff I don't think about. I'm kind of, siloed in my own experience. But I read something that made my mouth hit my desk. And it was a document or a news story that said, every time a woman goes out in public, her first thought is, am I in danger? Talk to me about we've talked a little bit about what businesses and social districts can do. Talk about a little bit about the individual, the woman who is out and socializing. Jim talked a little bit about the Ask for Angela program. I remember I spoke at one time with Amy Jones, the CEO. of the Dallas Area Rape Crisis Center about Ask for Angela. And she said, you know, that is a good program, but the biggest problem we have in the workplace is workplace sexual assault. So talk to us about that, Sonya. You're mute for some reason.
Thank you. Am I on mute?
You're good now. You're good.
Okay,
now.
good. I just wanted to say thank you for having me. Thank you to Jim. It was so refreshing to have a conversation with the police officer who gets it. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, you know, Randall, the truth of the matter is it is very unnerving that 61% of women regularly take steps to avoid being sexually assaulted. That's a huge number. You know, I ask men all of the time, how many times in a week do you actually walk out of your house and take routine steps to protect yourself from being sexually assaulted or victimized? How many times does it happen? It doesn't, right? We know that, you know, women are among the groups that feel less safe. We know that. That's not a surprise. And in my opinion, you know, to some degree, I think women are kind of taught to feel unsafe. And, you know, we do this in our society by the way we perpetuate these unspoken type of rules and guidelines for how people, women in particular, are supposed to act and how women are supposed to behave and how people are supposed to act and behave. You know, this has a lot to do with the social norms, these social norms that everybody wants to fit in, everybody wants to do what everybody else is doing. And so we forget to think about the problems that exist when it comes to violence against women. And in particular, you know, you're, you know, calling, you know, this opportunity tonight to talk about, you know, women in the workplace and women working at night. You know, I did a little research myself, and in all of my research in how are women being addressed when it comes to their safety, everything that I read was pointing back at the woman. It was always, you know, it's impossible to be completely victim free. Here's what you can do as a woman to keep yourself to be safe. You know, it's important for you to know these safety tips that will prevent you from any potential danger. It might just save your life if you learn this particular type of whatever it is that they're trying to teach them. And all that tells me is that the onus is on women. The onus is on women to protect themselves. And so I agree, you know, with Jim wholeheartedly that this is something that we have to move away from. We have to look at this as a community problem. At Darcy, we have this saying that sexual violence is a community problem that demands a community solution. And we believe that, wholeheartedly we believe that. This is about every one of us coming together and talking about, you know, you brought up, and I will say this because I wanted to address nightlife and nightlife venues. I mean, nightlife venues, if you ask me, because, you know, I was 25, 30 at one long time distance. That was me. I went out, I had a nightlife before marriage and children, you know, all of that. So I get it. You know, nightlife has been under scrutiny for a long time. You know, we used to go down to Lower Greenville and the Deep Ellum, the old Deep Ellum, before it was the Deep Ellum now. And it was under scrutiny then, and for obvious reasons. You know, you're talking chaos, you know, a lot of crowds, noises, you know, and even then it was under scrutiny for sexual assault and sexual misconduct. And now fast forward, we go all around, you know, about 20% of violent victimizations happen at night. If you're out, whether it's work or play, violent victimizations are happening at nighttime. And so we definitely have to, we have to get with ownership, management, coworkers, patrons, you know, everyone has to come together to decide, one, that this is a problem, right? That this is an issue and it's something that we actually want to do something about. I would imagine based on a lot of the, you know, Title VII, you know, Civil Rights Act laws against sexual harassment, everybody knows what they are. You know, they're buried somewhere deep down in the HR policy manuals, but what are we doing to actually take action? You know, that's the question for me. You know, I don't want this to be that it's the woman's responsibility to take care of her safety. Because I don't believe that. I believe that this is a community problem, you know, what we're teaching. And actually, when I think about prevention, you know, true prevention is where we are talking about efforts that not only teach us how to reduce or the risk factors that are involved, but they also increase the protective factors that are involved. And Jim kind of spoke a little bit to one of the protective factors, which is just empathy and our ability to be, we were talking the other night, and I think he termed it and coined it as productive empathy. There's something on, that you're getting out of it. And so I appreciated that, because empathy, we can't just have empathy for the sake of having it. There has to be an end goal, to why we're being empathetic of women and what women are going through. We can't, we have to teach more of ways to connect and come together with one another, to where we actually start seeing women as human beings and not as objects. We actually stop this feeling, that a lot of men have, this sense of entitlement, that because it's a woman, I'm entitled, to act this way or to say these things. Yeah, there's a lot that I could say, about this issue. We deal with this, we do a lot of prevention education. We too offer the bystander intervention courses to college students. We offer them to businesses. We offer it, really to churches. And in terms of nightlife, we have not cracked the code on bars. It's something that we would love to do because we understand how important it is, but we haven't, we haven't broached that yet. But listening to Jim, it inspired me. And so I think that's
well,
next.
now there was once a program, though, I as I recall, I remember Amy telling me at one point that Darcy worked with the restaurant industry on some kind of date rape or some workplace initiative.
Some workplace initiative.
That just went away?
It just went away. And it probably was pre-me. Yep. Before I came on board, yes, we have had talks with restaurant industry and trying to do more with the restaurant industry. And I'll tell you, we probably was going to venture into that in 2020, and 2020 just wiped us and set us back. Now we're just kind of finding our footing and having to reprogram and do everything virtually right now. And so again, when you call to set this up, this is an issue. It's definitely something that we've been interested in, wanting to be involved in the nightlife economy, wanting to, in fact, we did an outreach event that we called Darcy After Dark. And we scanned the uptown area on foot. And what we were doing is we were passing out glow sticks that had our name and our hotline, crisis hotline. And I tell you, approaching people, it was like we had the plague. People just don't want to talk about rape. People don't want to talk about sexual assault against women. It is not a favorite topic. It is not something that people want to own that's actually happening until, of course, something happens to them or to someone near them. Yeah, someone they love.
And interesting too, in this idea to a full court press, I'm assuming that if we could assemble a team that included the city, and included the economic development team, that included the chambers, that included the hotel industry, included the restaurant industry, included the bars, which are not really coalesced very well, included the county, because here we have county kind of government departments that deal with some sex crimes and human trafficking. We've connected with them on that. But don't you think a full court, would the Dallas Area Rape Crisis Center be interested in sitting down at the table and mapping out a strategy that would do something like that? Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. For me, and I know I speak, for our organization, that, prevention is a people, thing. It's a people problem. We have to get together. We have to come to the table and just talk about, women find themselves in potentially harmful situations and environments all the time. Like, that's just something that, we can agree that's happening. Of course, that's where people come in. That's where we all can come together and help. This situation that, it starts with us. This work should include, like I said, all of the efforts around really teaching active bystander intervention. Teaching people really about what sexual violence actually is. I mean, so many people don't understand that sexual violence is on a spectrum. It does not just involve rape. And I would venture to say that when we talk about nightlife, we're talking about sexual harassment, which is on the spectrum of sexual violence, which is occurring at an alarming rate. And you're right, it's not from the outside guy that's waiting on you when you get ready to walk home. It's the manager, it's the co-worker, it's the patron on the inside. You know, that's who's doing a lot of the sexual harassment. It's on the inside. So if we're talking about addressing what's happening on the outside in the streets, we got to be talking about what's hush hush happening on the inside. And I think until, you know, owners and more managers are willing to acknowledge that and stand up with teams like law enforcement, our rape crisis centers in the area, and really come together to kind of, like I said, identify this as a problem and then work together to come to an agreeable solution.
And to pop up the umbrella as big as we can. It isn't just limited to heterosexual relationships. We see sexual assault in the gay community and lesbian community, gay and lesbian community, and we also see victims of sex-related crimes in violence in that sector of the population too, which of course the night brings us together, and sometimes the night tears us apart.
Exactly.
So I want to park safety, sexual violence aside just a little bit and talk about the other issues that have to do with the female workforce.
Yes.
There are so many unknowns in Dallas. I even approached the workforce solutions of Greater Dallas and said, hey, how big is the nighttime workforce? Cricket. They didn't really know. They don't separate it out like that in their data. Oh, so I guess you can't tell me how much of the workforce at night is female. Cricket. So there's data we are missing right now. And I've seen data from New York City and London and some of the other places that you and I work with, Jim, that have gathered that kind of data already. Data seems to be one of those things that's looming at 24-hour Dallas. We really don't know the magnitude of the workforce or the economic impact of those kinds of things at night. But we do know, anecdotally, that in the hospitality industry, in restaurants, in healthcare, even in industry in Dallas, given that this is now a big kind of shipping center for Amazon, et cetera, there are women who work overnight, and they are in situations where not only safety is an issue, but all the other factors of just living, and that they're at a disadvantage, a double disadvantage, if you will. So, Carolyn, what we've talked about, we know that safety is front of mind with women all the time, but what are some of the other challenges? You're in the hospitality sector, you have a large female workforce in your industry. We know the restaurant relationship with the hotel industry is very strong. What are some of the other issues and challenges that women face who work at night?
Well, Randall, thank you very much for allowing me to be on this panel. And Jim, overachiever, thank you for your video. It was awesome to see. And Sonya as well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You know, one of the things, I've been in the industry for about 35 years. So I myself started in my early 20s and did the restaurant scene and waited tables and worked overnight. You know, the main thing with our female associates, I think, is the childcare issue. One of the main reasons why females work at night and single parents is so they can make sure that they can spend more time with their families and their children during the day, because they want to make sure that their kids are safe at home, sleeping at night with a family member. You know, typically there is a cost differential when you work at night. So there's a premium on wages because they do get a little bit more on an hourly rate when you work at night. So to make ends meet and to feed their family, that is the best time for females or single parents to work. And, you know, once you get into tipped positions, you know what, that cash is really great when you can go home with a wad full of cash in your pocket at night. So, you know, it's all about being able to take care of your family and make sure that you're doing the best to be a good mom, a good dad, a good parent, a grandchild, grandmother. And, you know, a lot of, especially right now, there are a lot of families that have grandparents, aunts, kids are moving back home. So just the work life is different in general. And everyone loves to go out and be entertained. One of the things why we get in this business, either restaurant or hospitality, is to take care of people. So, Jim, when you're talking about responsible alcohol service, we spend a lot of time in our industry making sure that everyone understands what responsible alcohol service is. We go through a lot of training, and we do partner with our local authorities to make sure that we are, doing what we're supposed to be doing. Unfortunately, this COVID situation has taught us a lot about, kind of regrouping and really understanding what the essentials and the importance of community is. And this, Sonya, now more than ever is the best time for us to get together and to make sure we can partner to do the right thing, take care of each other, look after each other. And, quite honestly, we all need to be entertained right now. We all need to get together. And unfortunately, we're doing a lot of these Zoom calls, and it's not as easy to go have a cocktail with friends anymore. But I think right now, especially, is the best time for us to group together and make this a safe and easy place for all of us to raise our families and, have a good time and have a vibrant downtown economy.
Well, and some of the information we've uncovered as I was kind of pulling some things together too, was that the workforce in general at night, is not privy to the same kind of goods and services that the 9-to-5 workforce has.
Right.
And I today posed to our county commissioners, how come we don't have a 24-hour voting location? Because if I go to work at 11, I get off at 7, I come home and I've got to feed the kids and then make sure that they're getting their COVID school training, and then I've got to sleep because I've got a second job before I go back out at 11. And it's a lot. It's a big financial burden, but when do I vote unless I stop earning money for a day? Daycare that you talked about, Carolyn, or night care, what's it called? Where is that? Is that is that really handy in the city of Dallas? I don't know. It's just basic social services. How do you get your car fixed? Transportation. We know that public transportation stops in Dallas at a magical hour of the night. And so all those folks who work around the clock or overnight are forced to be in their own car that deals suddenly with environmental issues. Why don't we have 24-hour public transportation? And so it's this huge web of opportunity, but that the workforce at night seems to be at a disadvantage to the people in the daytime. And the other thing we've learned too is that women are at a double disadvantage because apparently because of the circadian rhythms and all that kind of stuff of working at night, there are bigger physical health stresses on people who work at night, but women and studies are shown to have even a higher level of health, more incidence of cancer, more incidence of diabetes for whatever reasons. And so there are these health issues pertaining specifically to women who work at night or overnight. And I don't hear this talked about. I don't hear anybody talking about how we're keeping a healthy nighttime female workforce. And if that's not bad enough, it's even doubles down again when you're talking about women of color who work at night.
Right. And, I think, talking to some of our female leaders that are here overnight, they just don't sleep. That is the biggest cause for the health issues. You eat junk food. There's no place to really get a good meal. You're eating on the run because, like you said, Randall, by the time you get off work, you're going to get your kids ready to go to school. You feed them breakfast. You send them off, you take a couple hours nap, you go pick them up from school, then you do their homework and get them dinner, and then you take another couple hour nap and go back. So a lot of stress, anxiety, depression, that is kind of what happens when you are sleep deprived. And, it is very apparent that you're not as productive when you don't have that sleep. And women do not get as much sleep as men do because I think we just worry all the time. We want to make sure that everything is perfect. We want to make sure we don't fall down on any of our responsibilities. We never feel like that we are, doing our job as a mom, as a worker. And I think there's just a lot of stress that goes along with that. There was a study, I believe, with some young male and females that they were talking about a sleep study. And working at or cramming for a test, or maybe cramming for a big speech that you're going to make the next day, they tested the aptitude of both the male and the female, and the less sleep that a female gets, the less likely they are to retain any of that information. And I've always wondered why guys always can remember movie titles and all that stuff. So it really actually is true, I think.
Football stats.
What'd you say?
Football stats.
Well, hey, no. Well, that's very interesting. No, but you're right. So there are just biological differences in compounding the nighttime. So it sounds like a common thread here is if we could just change the white guys and reprogram them, we would make.
Listen to this.
We could make a few leaps here in helping it be to help manage some of the challenges and needs that are faced by women at night. However, what can we do? For example, if 24 Hour Dallas, as a all volunteer organization we are, decided to say, you know, we're going to dive in on this issue, the women and the nighttime economy, how to make it safer, how to make it healthier for them, how to create a more vibrant workforce at night, and be as big of an advocate for making that life easier. What could we do? What could we do?
You know, one thing, Randall, I think that is just getting the data, like you said before, and we really need to find out what is needed by the nighttime workforce. You know, when you go to, Jim was talking about safety, well-lit streets, that's
placemaking.
Important.
Yeah.
The cleanliness of the areas, just to make sure that you feel good about where you're going in the community. Transportation is super important. You know, you've got those folks that get off at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then you've got some that get off at 7 o'clock in the morning. And when the transportation stops at midnight and it doesn't start till 6 o'clock in the morning, they're forced to either take a cab or an Uber. And, you know, sometimes that may not be a safe choice for, some folks, and it's also pricey. So parking lots, you know, making sure that there is available parking for downtown employees. I think it's all of that is, paramount. And just working together and collaborating. We work very closely with DPD and, our fire and EMS officials here. And, they help us all the time. We bring up issues or, comments, and they do training for us. Anytime that we need anything, they're here for us. And I think we should be able to provide that training and awareness to others who either can't afford it or don't know that it's out there for them.
Sonia, how would you answer that question? What can we do better?
Yeah, great. I was just going to piggyback on what Carolyn was saying. I mean, we know women are 4 times as likely to experience sexual harassment and sexual assault in the workplace. And if that doesn't alarm you enough to get in the fire, and do something, I don't know what else does. I don't know what else does it. I think that we need definitely a culture where we're building awareness around these issues more. We're doing more talking, bringing people to the table, as you suggested. We need our city to present a more safe and supportive reporting opportunity, to give people the feeling that if they come forward and they report that these things are happening to them, that they will be supported. And even that, the support is what makes a person feel safe. And then the final thing is just the active bystander intervention training. We definitely need more of it in this city. I mean, that can, show up and look in a number of different ways. I've talked to, some restaurants and bars about putting signs up, in the bathroom. And I'm not just talking about the bathroom for women. I'm talking about also the bathroom for men, where it's very apparent to all the patrons that this is a zero tolerance policy. Yeah. We will not accept sexual harassment. We won't accept any type of victimization in our establishment. So that's something that we can do. Another thing that we've talked about is maybe having bars and restaurants and nighttime venues having trained advocates on staff. So maybe there's that one person who's trained that people feel comfortable going to and talking to about issues that they're facing. So that's something else that we've talked about doing. There's so many ideas. I know our staff is amazing and we have a lot of different ideas, and just being able to come to the table with 24-hour Dallas, law enforcement, wonderful groups like gyms, like the Omni, and just talking about how we can all work together to solve these issues, I think would just be great.
Everything seems to be pointing towards some kind of accreditation and training program, Jim. How would you answer that question? What do you think? You're the one that's not here. You don't know Dallas. You don't know the local politics. You don't know the dynamics. We do have the silos.
I think none of that matters, because
Yeah.
the issues that have been described here today are universal the world over. It doesn't matter what city you're in. It doesn't matter where you are. You're facing the same types of issues. Women deal with the same types of issues. On Carolyn's point that the community, like the fact that they take so much pride in how prepared their staff are to deal with issues is phenomenal. Imagine if you could get that type of investment, right? There's always like star businesses that I want to promote and say, look, this is the way it could be done and can be done well, right? You should be aspiring to the level of commitment and investment that they have in their employees, and creating an environment that's safe and profitable for them. Because at the end of the day, that's what they're there to do. They're there to make some money. Sonya, you touched on something that drives me nuts. The fact that you wanna make some interventions and engagement with restaurants and bars, and they don't want to be associated as that bar that where there's an issue with sexual assault or have that label on them. Once you can break those barriers, and that's where the relationships come in. The fact that the one thing I heard universally was community. When this matters to the community, then there is incentive to get on board. When they see this is in their best interest, and frankly, they will look pretty poorly within the community and be looked down upon as not doing their part, then all of a sudden those dynamics change. And that, I had a restaurant owner who was probably the worst. We had drug investigations going on, dealing with the staff. We had sexual assaults. I mean, you name it. And they were absolutely defiant. They ended up being the pilot restaurant in the pilot program. They were the very first accredited business. So the one that literally told me to get out of their restaurant, kicked me out, ended up being the very first. If you can invest in those relationships, that's where you're going to open the door. That's where you're going to get the investment. And then, that's where, all the other agencies get to flood in with policies and effective practices and training, because they can't open those doors. And frankly, the police, when the police show up, most of the time, the door gets open because out of some, whether they realize they could say it or not to get lost. But I mean, that's they open the door just because we are the police. We should be using our ability to engage with the community to open those doors for all the other agencies like yours to improve. I mean, that's what I see.
Well, and Carolyn's point is, and then I'll kind of wrap up, Carolyn's point is that we're also at a very unique opportunity in time. Before, the presumption now is that the nighttime economy will reopen with more aggression in 2021. So what framework can we put there? Can you imagine that magical day when boom, suddenly everybody's got the COVID, injection and everybody's immune, and woohoo, it's going to be like the roaring 20s all of a sudden. How nice to get ahead of that, though, with some systems that provide a net for the dynamics that we might be able to have the opportunity to fix something that's been a problem, I guess. So I hope that I would like to thank our guests, Dimitrios Mastoras from Safe Night LLC, Carolyn Dent of the Omni Dallas Hotel, Sonya Goode of the Dallas Area Rape Crisis Center, or Darcy, as they say, for being our panelists today. I want to thank you for dialing in. The topic for our next Zoominar, I think, is going to be called Stop Kicking Our Bars Around. Dallas, the bars in Texas are really getting the short end of the shrift right now because they don't classify as restaurants. They're not getting the financial support. They're kind of seen as There's places that you don't necessarily want to give a lot of political energy to because, well, you know, they're bars. And yet there are employment. These are workforce, these are employers, and they're facing certain challenges right now and even continuing to be vital as businesses. So I'm having some interesting conversations. I think our next webinar will be called "Don't Stop Kicking Our Bars Around." And I also want to thank our co-sponsors, the Nasher Sculpture Center and Pavé Group. And if you are interested in helping us shape this kind of full court press, this coalition of people to address women's safety and women's well-being at night, both from a workforce perspective as well as from a personal safety perspective, being a part of this, join 24 Hour Dallas, sign up at 24hourdallas.org, become a part of our organization. Membership's not a deal. It's $25 for a year. It just lets us know you're there, you're willing to get involved. And if you're a business or an association, we have a $100 membership for those organizations. The Omni is a member, Safe Night's a member, and we appreciate all of those people. By ignoring what takes place in the city of Dallas from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning, we are leaving half of our potential on the table. Thank you for joining us. My name is Randall White. And may we all remain safe, healthy, productive, and really happy about where we work, live, and socialize. Thank you again.
Thank you, Randall.
Thank you,
Great job.
Randall. Thank you, Randall. Thank you all. Nice
be
to
part
meet
of it.
you all.
Bye. Nice to meet you
Bye.
too.